Perfect. Hey, y'all. Thanks again for visiting the Kelly Renee Life Coach channel. This is Kelly Renee, and I have a beautiful guest with me, Olivia Hill. She's going to be chatting with us and telling us a little bit about her story along the way. Before we get going too far, I just want to tell you, you are all loved. You are all so, so precious. I see you. I see your joys and your celebrations, and I'm so excited about that. I also see your struggles and your pain and your frustrations, but you're valued and loved and oh so precious. So thanks for being here. If you think about it, remember to share, like, and subscribe to this video, and just help us build our community together. Thank you so much. With that, I've asked Olivia Hill to join me today. Olivia is an amazing individual who spent a number of years in the power plant industry, I think 35 years, right? And is a veteran, and we're so excited to have her here. She's a trans advocate and sits on the board of the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce in Nashville. And again, Olivia, welcome. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you.
It's so exciting to see you. You're so beautiful. Thank you again. So, Olivia, tell us a little bit about your story. I know one of the things that I wanted to be able to do with this channel was to hear people's stories, because I think in sharing our stories, it gives other people hope and courage and perspective. And I think you're a great person to start with. So please take it away.
Thank you so much. I guess we kind of have to back all the way up to the beginning. And when I was a child growing up in Westmead, on the west side of Nashville, I really didn't feel any different than any of the other females in my family. I wasn't old enough to understand gender. I wasn't old enough to understand a lot of the mechanics of that, other than I like the same things my mom liked and my grandmother. I love to go shopping and cooking and cleaning, and I love to play with makeup. And whenever my female cousin would come over to visit, I would wear her dresses and she would practice doing my hair. And I just didn't feel any different. And it wasn't until I was about 10 years old that I wanted to start wearing dresses and curling my hair and doing things like that out of the house that I got the talk, and that I was a boy and I had to be a boy. And at the same time, I was sent to a psychiatrist in Green Hills for 2 years every Wednesday, which is also the same day I take my estrogen shot for a reason, to teach me to be a boy and to like boy things and to not like girl things or feminine things. I'm supposed to like cars and trucks and manly things. At the same time, my mom signed me up for Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, baseball, football, basketball, every possible thing she could think of to, kind of man me up. And for a long time, I just felt broken, because there wasn't an internet in 1975, and there wasn't anybody that talked about stuff like this back then. And so I just felt broken.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what to do with that, because, when a doctor tells you, up to around 6, 7, 8 years old, you pretty much believe anything that comes out of your parents' mouth. They say the sky's purple. They're like, sky's purple. My mama said so.
Yep, that's right.
And then around 8 or so, you start to kind of question your parents a little bit, but you still hold true to any kind of person of authority, whether it be a teacher, a police officer, and especially a doctor or a priest or preacher. Those type of people are still way up there, and you still believe everything. And so I just felt broken, and so I didn't know how to deal with that. So I tried to be as manly as I could possibly be. I tried to watch movies. I tried to mimic Burt Reynolds and other people, Frank Sinatra and other people of that era that were really, men's men. I tried to date throughout high school and was not very successful. Most of the girls that I dated broke up with me because I was a little too feminine for some reason. And back then, you know, you really only had two choices. You were a manly man or you were gay. There was no gray area. There was nothing. So if you kind of off center a little bit, then you kind of fell in either one of those other categories. So I decided at age 20 to go in the service because I thought, you know what, military can fix me because I'm broken. The doctor says that I'm a boy and I have to be a boy, but I feel like a girl inside. And so, you know, if I go into service, they can fix me, they can make me whole, and things will finally be good. And so I joined the service and went to Great Lakes up in Chicago, and boot camp was not what I thought it was going to be. I was still quite feminine and I was beaten up a lot.
Really? Oh my goodness.
The last night, which would have been April the 19th of 1986, when I had the biggest, back then the Navy called them the blanket party. And that's where they throw a blanket over you and everybody gets on the side and they hold you down. So you're basically mummified. You can't do anything. You can't move. And everybody, all 90 plus men, take a chance of hitting you. I had a couple of ribs cracked. I had my nose broke, busted my jaw, busted my lip. And then once they let me go, I took off and I ran and I hid in the shower. And that's where I stayed with my back in the corner so that at least I could see whatever was coming at me. That morning, the company commander came in at Reveille and he said, "What are you doing in here? What's wrong with you?" Because I had blood on me and everything like that. And he said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, I slipped down the stairs because I didn't want to get anybody in trouble. I didn't want to be the outcast. I didn't want to be the finger pointer. So I thought, you know what? I just slipped down the stairs. And he just looked at me with this strange kind of smart ass smirk. And he was like, "Well, I suggest you be a little bit more careful in what you do and how you act since this is a one-story building." And I knew at that moment that he knew that there was probably a lot of talk about me behind my back. And I knew at that moment, April the 20th, that I had to hide that side of me. I could never allow anybody to see that if I wanted to continue moving forward and be safe. And so at that point, I decided to try to drop my voice. I tried to be as manly and as macho as I possibly could be. And I excelled very well in my naval career. I was only in 10 years. I moved in rank all the way up to E6. I took the test for E7 and passed the test. But the way military looks at it is if you don't get paid for it, you're not really at that rank. And it takes a while once you take the test and you get moved up and you get moved into that rank, and then you get settled in, and then it's another 6-8 months or so before you actually get paid. And so you're not considered that pay level until you're paid. So I basically got out as an E6, but an E7 in less than 10 years is considered a pretty fast track in the military.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I got out and started working at Vanderbilt, doing the same thing that I did in the military, which is making steam and electricity. And I did the same thing there. I just put every ounce of me into my career and tried to be the manliest man I could possibly be. I tried to sell it. I tried to be everything. I held every single position at Vanderbilt Power Plant. I've been diesel mechanic, jet engine mechanic. I've been controls, operations, supervisor, lead person, assistant plant manager, maintenance. I've held every position at the plant in the 25, almost 26 years I've been there. But then everything changed around 5 years ago when my mother passed. And it's like all of me just bubbled out and couldn't stop it. And so I tell a lot of people that's kind of when my egg cracked. And it's like I couldn't put it back in. It was out. I had enough information then to know who I was and what I was. And dang it, I was tired of hiding it.
Yeah.
And so sitting on the floor right over there in front of that couch, Thanksgiving weekend, 2017, I sat down and cried, and I took my very first dose of estrogen.
Mm.
And January of 18, I started seeking counseling so that I could start estrogen shots, of which I started that April. And that summer of 18, I came out to my employer, Vanderbilt University. And then February of 2019, basically 6 months later, I took some time off to go have all my surgeries done. I had facial feminization surgery, top surgery, and bottom. I did my top and bottom at Duke University in Raleigh, North Carolina. Dr. Keely McPhee, which is phenomenal. She does a great job. And I asked to have all three done in the same time so that I could get it all done.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people talked me out of that, and I'm really glad that I didn't, because all three are very big surgeries.
Yeah, they're
And to do
significant.
top and bottom the same day was, if I had to go over again, I would probably not do that. And then I had 11 and a half hours on my face. So I'm really glad I didn't do it all at the same time.
Yeah.
But I had my face surgery done here at Vanderbilt Medical Center, which Vanderbilt Medical Center has been phenomenal to me.
Yeah.
From their staff, the people that's there, the doctors, there's just so many people there. They do so much good for so many people. I'm on a trans buddy program, which I think you are as well.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between VUMC and Vanderbilt University. And VUMC has been just great to me. Absolutely phenomenal.
Good. Good.
And so I'm pretty well caught up. There's been some other things that happened that when I came back to work after all my surgeries, that the people I work with didn't do so good with the transition. And now there's a big federal lawsuit, and I can't really go into too much detail about that. But so here we are.
Wow. Wow.
I'll let you ask the questions.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Olivia, for sharing your story. And I see so many similarities in your story in comparison to mine in some respects. I know I enlisted in the Navy at 17, and I joined the Navy to see the world, and they sent me to Cleveland, Ohio. So that was an interesting part of my life. Also went to Great Lakes. That was a lovely place to go. Yeah, the other thing that was really intriguing to me too is that as someone who's a little more mature, like myself, there was a fairly substantial event that occurred that after that event caused you to say, you know what, I'm not hiding anymore. I'm done. I'm coming out. I'm going to be who I am, and I'm not going to hide it. And I went through a similar situation. For me, it was a heart attack that resulted in bypass surgery. And at that point, I just knew that I just couldn't wait anymore. And so many people I see question at the age of 30 or 40 or sometimes even 50 say, is it too late for me? And my response to that is, it's absolutely not too late.
No.
And so much of that, I think, is in part because we hide, right? We've hidden who we are. We've hidden our identities for so long, and yet those feelings, those knowings, never go away. And it's really important for us to acknowledge who we are as people. And whether that be trans or gay or bi or whatever, we're still a human, and we have our emotions and feelings and things that are not going to change about us. And it's time to stop hiding. Excellent.
Very true. Because I run a trans support group, and it's very common. I've not met any trans person yet, trans man or trans woman, that didn't have a really good idea when they were younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like you say, there's always some tragedy or something that causes a shift that we
Yeah.
come out
Yeah.
and we are tired of hiding. And most of us are very good, and most of us overcompensate and a very well-adjusted male pretending,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Compensating, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, Olivia, what's one thing that you wish you would have known before you began your transition?
Oh gosh, if I had to name one thing that, so many people talk about it. If you look around, there's 40 billion ways that you can take estrogen. Everybody has their opinion of how to take it, when to take it, where to give you a shot, whether it's a pill or whatever. And there's so many things that lead up to surgery, and there's thousands of blogs and groups and support groups and Facebook groups and everything that tells you everything about how to transition, what's the best way to transition, and things you need to do along your transition, and yada, yada, yada. One thing nobody talks about, and it's one thing I've spent a lot of time recently over the last year and a half, is what happens after you're there.
Yeah.
And the one thing nobody ever speaks of, and has been a huge, huge slap in my face because I had no idea, was the loss of my male privilege that I never had any idea that I had.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that they only worked on my face. I didn't realize that they took part of my brain.
Yeah.
It must have been while I was asleep, because once I had top surgery, then part of this kind of went away, and it's been amazing to me how condescending men can be to women now that I'm on the other side. And so mansplaining. Oh gosh. Mansplaining.
That term definitely came to my mind as you were speaking. Yeah, I totally get it.
And so, if I'd have known, and I would have liked to have known that ahead of time, but I don't know that it would really change a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I look back and say, gosh, I kind of wish I knew that, or gosh, I really wish I would have transitioned in 1975 and I wouldn't have to go through all those things. But the truth of the matter is if I'd have been my true authentic self in 1975, I probably would have been beaten up a lot more. I probably would have ended up in jail or dead. I would have never, ever been able to excel the way that I did as a male. It would have been my true self. I never made the money that I've made. I'd never have a beautiful home as I have. And so I think things happen for a reason in the time that they're supposed to happen.
Yep.
Your comment earlier about it is ever too late. And I've known people in their 70s. I've known people in their upper 70s that have transitioned, and it's never too late.
Yeah.
If you feel like you and you're ready to be you, then I say go for it. You have 100% my support.
And mine, and a whole community of support too. I think one of the things that I find so exciting and exhilarating is the amount of support that we see in some of the Facebook and other groups where people actually come alongside folks that are struggling and really trying to find their way and questioning and doubting themselves. But the support that I see in there has been phenomenal for so many people.
Yeah. And one thing that I've really learned too is it seems like for some reason, for most of the people that pre-transition have a really hard time stepping over the boundary to post-transition. And most of the trans people that I've come across in my lifetime have lost a good portion of those, whether it be some of their family, their close friends, some of them have lost spouses, and it's been very tragic. But like you say, once you're on the other side, you get a lot of support.
Yeah.
They're usually from new people.
For sure. And that's really critical too. And it's one of the reasons why I created a new resource that I'm going to release very shortly, called Thriving Through the Holidays. And the reason for that is we have all lost so much. And even for somebody who's not part of the LGBTQIA plus community, we see people struggling at holidays because of loss that they've experienced, whether it's relatives or close friends or whatever. And the holiday seasons seem to be such a huge trigger. And so when I put together this resource, it was with the thought primarily of our community, but really anyone can take advantage of it. And a lot of it starts with just recognizing why we feel the way we do. What are those triggers around the holidays? And
Yeah.
then allowing ourselves to feel that. Because I don't know about you, but I was never taught to feel my feelings. Those were the things that got stuffed away and hidden, and nobody ever talked about stuff.
Very true.
But the older I get, the more I recognize that I have to understand where those feelings come from and how they make me feel in my body in order to move through them and get on to the other side. So I'm excited about that. Olivia, what would you say your biggest failure is, and what did you learn from
Wow. I guess it kind of goes back to your similar question, is my failure to prepare. One thing that I've learned through this transition is there's a lot of bad information out there.
it? Yes, isn't that the truth?
And fear.
Mm-hmm.
I think my biggest failure is I believed a lot of the fear. I succumbed to its control.
Yeah.
And I learned that fear taught me that it's okay to hide. Fear taught me that I wasn't allowed to really truly be me, and that I couldn't go out in public, and if I did, people wouldn't accept me, and all these things. And so, if I can offer any advice to anybody out there, fear is a liar. Be your true self and stand tall. You're going to have people that are not going to like you, but that happens in regular life, just like everything else.
Absolutely.
Just be you. Yeah,
excellent. That is great advice too. And that kind of leads into the next question, but you've answered it already. And that was, what advice would you give someone who's just beginning the coming out process? And I think your response about fear is perfect, because fear does control a lot of what we think and do.
Yeah, I know so many girls that I remember my very first time, a short story, the very first time that I finally got the nerve to go out into public, because I did it a couple of times, just sneaking out, and I would back my car into the garage, and then I would get dressed at night and then get in my car and I drive around town, and I just felt like I was out. I felt like I was doing something really cool, and all I was doing was sitting in my car. Now, bear in mind, that's probably the best I ever drove in my entire life, because I 100% did the speed limit. I stopped twice at every stop sign, and I stayed at complete stop at every red light. But then I found some friends of mine talked to me into finally going out and go. It was her birthday party, and they wanted me to go with her, and I was like, I don't know, gosh, that's like real public. It's like people can see me. And she's like, honey, you're beautiful. It's fine. You're going to be fine. And so she finally talked me into it. I actually paid money for a lady to come professionally do my makeup because I was so scared, terrified. I walked in, I sat down, and I was like, wow, I did this. Wow, I'm here. And about 3 minutes later, the executive director from my department walks in the door. And I about crawled under the table. Now, bear in mind, she didn't recognize me, and she didn't have a clue who I was. And once I finally came out to her at work a couple of years later, I said, do you remember that day you were at? And she's like, yeah. And I was, that was me. She's like, really? I had no idea. But in my mind, there was a big loudspeaker that said, she's right here.
Yes, here she is.
And so you know, a lot of times we see people and we see things and we think, because everything's so hypersensitive, and you think people are really looking at you because, hey, I know that that person's trans. And a lot of times they're just looking at you, go, wow, that's a cute outfit.
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. I'm continually surprised by compliments from men or men holding the door for me. And I absolutely love it. But you know, those are things that I never thought would happen. And they do. They happen on a fairly frequent basis. So it's pretty exciting. Olivia, what would you say some of the greatest resources are that helped you along the way?
VUMC, I'd have to put at the very top of the list. Their transplanted program, their doctors there, um, some of their people at the psych hospital that I've come in contact with over the last couple of years, and it's just a great resource. It's a lot of really, really good people. Another one would be Dawn Bennett at the table.
Oh, yes, Pastor Don.
Yes, she's freaking awesome. I love her. And she's been very instrumental in my journey to help me build my confidence and help me feel a lot more me. The least would be the internet. You know, it's kind of funny. I really thought the internet was a huge resource and I could start reading and learning a lot. But you know, like we discussed earlier, there's really a lot of bad information out there. And that's the one thing that I tried to do in my journey is I started seeing, I started learning that I wanted to try to build a huge, diverse group of people around me. Because I saw so many trans people get into little bitty groups of other trans people, and they just sit around and complain about how bad it is, because it's not easy. I guarantee you there's not a trans person on this earth that sat around one day and went, you know what? I think I'm bored. I think I'm gonna change gender so I can get some.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody in their right mind that will throw away their career, their life, their family, their everything, and put their bodies through what we go through to be our true authentic self. So, you know, to think that it's some kind of choice is just crazy.
Yeah, it is pretty nuts. It is pretty nuts. You've named a couple of people already, but who are the three people that you say have been the most influential for you?
As weird as it may sound, the first is myself. One of the hardest lessons I had to learn in this transition was to learn to be okay with me.
Mm-hmm.
And once you learn that, everything else is pretty well cakewalk. Because, you know, you have to be able to like you, because, and I hated me. I didn't like me at all prior to pre-transition. I didn't like me. I didn't like my body. I didn't like anything about it. And once I started to transition, I was like, I'm kind of cool.
You are. And you know what? I hate to interrupt you, but that is such an important point. Being able to be okay with who we are is critical, not only to our survival, but to our thriving beyond that. And you're right, this process is incredibly difficult. And we put literally everything about our lives at risk. And so if we're not okay with who we are, that just makes the struggle almost impossible.
Right.
Yep.
So I'd have to put myself in first place on that one. Number two, I'd have to say is Pastor Dawn.
Mm-hmm. I could have guessed that one.
She's pretty awesome. She's listened to me in a lot of ways, and I've listened to her. We've actually been a good sounding board for each other. And I think we've both grown from it. So
Excellent, excellent. Let's debunk a myth. What's one myth about the LGBTQIA plus community that you want to debunk?
well, that one's kind of hard because you know, a lot of people put a comma in between the LGB and the T, and a lot of people see the LGB as who you want to sleep with,
Mhm.
and the T is who you are, gender.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people put a space in between there, and that we don't really belong. But if you really look back on it in history, it was the trans women who were out waving the flag in the beginning and started this whole thing. I say the biggest myth would probably be, and it really hurts my feelings, is when people in LGBT put their struggle and compare their struggle to people of color. Because there's just nothing. There's no way. We're not similar in any way. And the only reason that the LGBT, in my opinion, the LGBT has progressed in the last 30 years the way it has is because a lot of it is white male driven by white gay men. And they've used their privilege to move things along in a very progressive way. And people of color are still struggling. And to say that we understand what they're going through, that we've been what they've been through, and that we're on any kind of equal playing field is just wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. That's really important. Okay, so this is my first stab at this. And I'm so excited that you agreed to join me today. But if you were in my shoes, what questions would you have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
Ooh. Wow, that one's kind of tough. I didn't really kind of put any thought to that because I think you covered a lot of things. I think you started out with, in my opinion, the most powerful thing you can ever do to any trans person, and that's to ask their story. Because we've all had that hidden for so many years, and some of it's been 5 or 10 years, and some of it's been 50, you know, and for somebody to say, hey, tell me your story. I mean, it's like asking a professional football player to go play football, or somebody who's really good at something, a musician to play the guitar for you, to play the piano. Because that's who we are. And we've been in hiding for so long. And when somebody says, tell me your story, there's really not much more powerful you can do than that. And then you really covered a lot of areas. You covered, you know, my military career and similarities in you and I. And I think that connected you and I to everybody who's watching this, because I believe that there's going to be a ton of people that watch this are going to say, hey, that happened to me too. Or yeah, I went through that too.
Yeah.
Because I've learned with this transition that we all have a lot of the same struggles. We all go through basically the same stuff. Maybe it's a different color or a different shoe size or whatever, but it's all the same struggle. You know, we all feel like us when we're small children. We all are, you know, told that we can't do that, we can't be that, and so we hide it. We feel broken or twisted or whatever we kind of do in our own minds to make that seem right. Until the time you get to a point where your egg cracks, you know. So I think you did a very, very good job.
Well, and I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you so much. I so appreciate you, Olivia. How can folks connect with you?
My name is Olivia Hill. You can connect me. You can find me on LinkedIn at Olivia Hill. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, Olivia Hill 247. Because I'm me 24/7. And I'm here and I'm not going away.
Excellent, excellent. And I'll put links. I'll put links to that stuff in the show notes too for folks so they can connect with you if they want to. Okay, last question. What are 3 books you would recommend to our viewers and why?
Wow. See, that's a tough one too, and I wasn't really prepared for that. I'm not a great reader. I'm a short story kind of person. I go find topics on the internet and I read stuff, but to actual sit and read like a novel and books and stuff like that, for some reason, reading just relaxes me, and it makes me. I just immerse myself into what I'm reading, and I just forget about everything, and I just shut down. And so, for me to read a book takes days.
I understand that. I understand that. I won't put you on the spot then. Is there anything left that we didn't cover? Anything left that was unsaid?
Wow, I think you covered a lot of the bases. I think you were very good about hitting all the corners. I think you brought everything to the center. I think you did a very good job at connecting with everybody, all the people that's listening. I'd like to say all that are watching and listening right now. Thank you for giving me a platform to speak, and most of all, this amazing person right here. I really think a lot about you, and I think you've come a long ways, and I'm really proud to call you a friend.
Oh, you're so sweet. I love you to death. Well, everybody, I think it's time for us to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Olivia, again. Thank you all who are watching. Again, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And let's continue to tell each other stories. This is such important work, and it's so valuable to every one of us. I love you all to pieces. Have a great day.